Hey, everybody, we appreciate you joining. We're going to get started here in a couple minutes, and thank you very much. All right, looks like we just hit the 2 o'clock time marker. I'm going to give just one more minute to let everybody get logged in, and then we'll kick this off. And thank you for everybody for attending. I'll be back in 60 seconds. Thank you. Okay, very good. So we're going to get started here. First off, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Brian Mull. I am the Director of Marketing and Talent Acquisition for Critical Design Associates. We're excited today to present a webinar entitled Learn How to Solve Citrix Problems Automatically with ControlUp. And I got to say, the engineers in our team are a big fan of ControlUp, and it's one of the reasons why we wanted to present this webinar today. It's technology that we really believe in, that we really feel is helpful, and we're quite gracious for Barry from ControlUp to be able to present today. So before we get into our presentation, I just want to tell you a little bit about Critical Design Associates. But for today's agenda for right now, I'm going to kick things off while everybody gets logged into the webinar. Then I'm going to turn the presentation over to Barry Flanagan from ControlUp. And then we'll do like an interactive question and answer session. And I'm asking that everybody on the webinar please use the question and answer function within the Zoom software. Participation is encouraged. I will be muting everybody during the presentation so that the flow is not interrupted. But if you do have questions, feel free to enter them into that question and answer box, and I will make sure that I present them to our presenter. Great. So a little bit about Critical Design Associates. We were founded in 2001 with a focus on project consulting, managed services, and staffing. Our current office location is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, though our team is distributed amongst the United States. We have team members in Texas, North Carolina, Chicago, Florida, all over the place, but Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Amish country is where our headquarters are at. And our customers, we focus on Fortune 1000 companies. That's not to say that we don't work with small organizations that might have 1,000 seats or less, but where Critical Design Associates really shines are the enterprise size organizations with usually 1,000 seats or more. And today in 2019, our core services are still consulting, managed services, and staffing. The customer verticals that we focus on: financial, healthcare, power, which would be energy, oil, and gas, manufacturing, legal, education, and retail. And the practice areas that we focus on are application delivery and packaging, endpoint management, cybersecurity, regulatory compliance, and IT service management, ITSM, and IT asset management, ITAM. You'll notice here it says service-based organization. That's because there are organizations like ours that will have 25 people on their team and 20 people are sales and marketing folks and the other 5 are engineers. That is the complete opposite with Critical Design Associates. We are very engineering heavy. I would say that our company is 20 engineers and we have 5 office support people, including myself, the marketing director. So our customers seem to really appreciate this because we are engineering heavy, and that's really what they're looking for is expertise. The third point here is that investment in our people, and that ties directly with the pillars of success for Critical Design Associates. It starts with the people. Without a doubt, our team is the most valuable asset in our company. We are constantly cross-training, going to conferences, doing meetup groups, doing webinars, online training. We're constantly making ourselves better. And that is so that we could advise the best process and platform to use when our clients come to us with a business challenge. So our consultants are going to meet with a client, develop the right process, and marry that up with a software platform that'll ultimately solve their business challenges. So these 3, people, process, platform, are a symbiotic relationship in our company and the pillars of our success. Which starts with the full project analysis. We then design a solution, we build a solution, we do thorough testing, and then we deploy to a live environment. And we rinse and repeat with this. We use this on every single project that we do. Once again, one of the keys to our success. To view with the recording words. And if anybody has any questions on this, I'd be glad to help answer them. These are some of the partners that we work with right now that we add value-added services and resell. And, so without further ado, I'd like to get started. I'm very excited to present this over to our featured speaker, who is Barry Flanagan from ControlUp. Barry, I'm going to let you take it from here, and I thank everybody for attending today.
All right, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it, and thank you to all of you that are attending. So I'm going to share my screen here. And I do have a few slides, but just a few. 4 slides, and then we'll jump right into live demos. So we're going to talk, as Brian said, about how you can solve Citrix issues before they occur with ControlUp. So let's first start off. Some of you may have heard of ControlUp, some of you may have not, so I think it's good to give you just a brief overview. So ControlUp is based in San Jose. Our R&D is in Israel. We are a venture-backed company. We've been around since 2011. We have over 1,500 customers. We really started in the Citrix space. We've done extremely well in the Citrix space. A few years back, we expanded into the VMware space as well, and we've had a lot of success there. And you can see here, as one of our SEs calls it, our NASCAR slide with some of the logos that we've won. We've been very successful in the last 3 years, especially. We've been growing very rapidly. I think the last 3 or 4 Citrix Synergies, we've either been a finalist or the winner of the Best of Synergy Award for a digital workspace. This past year, we were the winner of that award. We won multiple Best of VMworld as well in the EUC space. So we've been very successful working with customers, especially Citrix customers, as I imagine many of you are, in VMware Horizon. So let's talk about what ControlUp is and how it can add value and help solve problems for you. So at the high level, ControlUp does monitoring, troubleshooting, and remediation in one console. The way I like to describe us is a troubleshooting and fix tool that leverages real-time monitoring. And the reason I say that is because there are a lot of monitoring tools out there today, but I would describe most of the tools that are available for you to monitor an EUC solution like Citrix or VMware Horizon, most of them are really historical data reporting. And what I mean by that is they don't collect data very frequently. If you look at most solutions that are available today, they collect data every 5 minutes. The challenge with collecting data every 5 minutes is IT infrastructure metrics tend to have a lot of peaks and valleys. And if you're getting a data point every 5 minutes, you're going to miss a lot of those peaks and valleys. When I was at a recent event, someone pointed out to me all their processors were 4 gigahertz. So that means 4 billion clock cycles a second. So in the 300 seconds that happen in 5 minutes, that's a lot of clock cycles. So having more frequent data collection as close to real time as possible, like ControlUp, is important. Our real-time console, which we'll spend a lot of time in the demo on, collects data every 3 seconds. And we do that because if you're going to focus on troubleshooting, you need to know what's happening right now. What happened 5 minutes ago is not going to help very much. And we can do that drill down from a host all the way down to a VM, to a session, and then down to the process level. And we'll show you that in the demo. Another big difference for ControlUp is that we have a number of actions available, both what we call built-in actions and script actions. And those drill down to the process level. So a lot of monitoring tools, if they have any actions at all, they're VM level generally, start and stop a VM. We have actions down to a process level where you can end or kill a process, but you can also throttle it. You can change the process priority, and you can set process affinity. And we also have what we call script actions, and we'll show you a lot of this in the demo. Script actions allow you to import PowerShell and VB script into our console and invoke it on objects, so that massively expands the actions capability. And those reasons are why I lead with this is troubleshooting and fix, not just monitoring. Most monitoring tools are just pointing you in the right direction. It's up to you to figure out how to figure out what to do next. With ControlUp, we help you not only figure out what to do next, but in many cases, we can take action. The next big thing for ControlUp is our user experience monitoring and optimization. So as we'll show you through the demo, we have a number of unique UX or user experience metrics that are available. And when you combine it with another new feature that we're going to talk about a lot today, ControlUp automation, we can now dynamically optimize user experience. And we'll show you several demos of that. And then finally, the assisted troubleshooting and root cause analysis. So one thing you'll see through ControlUp, we have a number of grid views that are available. They're easy to sort by and customize. You could call them dashboards. It makes it not only easy to find one problem, but to figure out if that one problem is affecting multiple people that haven't called the help desk yet. We do have an assisted troubleshooting feature that we'll show you in the demo called the Virtual Expert. And when you combine all these features with our ControlUp automation, you'll see how with ControlUp, you can reduce Citrix focused help desk incidents on a monthly basis and cut your mean time to resolve by 30% by leveraging ControlUp automation. So let's talk a little bit about the architecture of ControlUp. ControlUp is what we call a hybrid cloud solution. If you have to have on-premise, we do have an on-premise option, but about 90–95% of our customers go with a hybrid cloud solution. The first thing you do when you download the trial of ControlUp is you set up the console. You see it right here. The console is an executable. You don't have to install it. It just runs the executable. It creates an NRAM database. After you set that up, you can start to add resources. You can add hypervisors. So that can be, as you see down here, that can be VMware ESX. That can be Hyper-V. That can be Nutanix, AHV, or Citrix hypervisor. We have all those options available, and we connect to those via API. We also have a Citrix Zen Desktop API where we can get some of your published app information. The version I'll show in the demo also now has a Horizon API information as well. And then we also have an agent that we run into our VMs, and that's where we get a lot of the data, and that's what allows us to get down to the process level and take action. Now, I find when I talk to people about the agent, a lot of times they push back on having an agent and monitoring. But as I said, if you want to get down to the process level and take action, you need an agent. The reason agents have gotten a bad name with monitoring is because most monitoring vendors, when they rolled out their agent, they leveraged WMI from Windows Management Instrumentation. And what we find is, unfortunately, that is occasionally a CPU hog and almost always a memory hog. So we wrote our own agent. We leveraged the Perfmon API. And we find that our agent on average uses 1 to 2% of memory, pardon me, 1 to 2% of CPU, and about 40 or 50 meg of working set memory. So that's kind of the architecture. And now let's jump into the demo. Now I will give one caveat here. We just upgraded the demo to a beta code this week. We have run into a few problems with the beta, but let's see, everything is looking good right now. So let's jump right in. So this is our real-time console where we're collecting data every 3 seconds. Right here, you see what we call the grid view or the dashboards. Here's the default one. As I said, you can sort by this. You can very easily move metrics. So if I wanted to move this metric right here, I just click and drag it. We have a number of pre-built presets, and you can also go into here with manage columns and create your own. So it's very easy to create your own custom dashboards. Over here is what we call the folder view. When you add hypervisors or add virtual machines, you can decide what folders you put them in, and you can group folders by either infrastructure type or location, or a combination of both. So let's jump into some scenarios. So first we're going to do a little root cause analysis, and we're going to drill down from a problem we identify on a host and go all the way down to the process level, then take action. All right, so what we're looking at here, I clicked on host, so you see all the hosts that are available in our San Jose demo. So the first thing I look at here is stress level. So stress is what we call an aggregated metric. What that means is it looks at several other metrics that have a predefined threshold and a load, and it alerts you when there's an issue based on that. So the idea is it helps you figure out where you need to focus your attention right away. So I can see right away this VM host 2 is where I need to focus my attention because it has a high stress level. And if I just glance over to the metrics, I can see right away that data store read-write IOPS is the source of my problem right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is invoke the virtual expert, a feature I mentioned earlier that does guided troubleshooting. So I invoke it by clicking on the 3 blue bars next to the metric. So I'm going to click there, and it's going to bring up and give me navigation suggestions. So the first one it says is, because this is a host that has VMs on it, I should drill down to the VM view, to the machine view, but only look at IO. As I said, this is an IO metric. So right now, while I'm troubleshooting, I'm not going to focus on CPU, memory, or network. I'm only going to focus on IO for virtual machines on this particular host. So I've drilled down. Here's the host at the top. Here's every VM down at the bottom that is currently running on that host. And it's sorted by the metric that's most exceeding threshold. So in this case, it's virtual disk read IOPS. As you can see, if I hover over it, it brings up a tooltip, and looks like we're maybe having a little trouble here with demo, as I warned about. So give me a moment here. I'm going to start back. So we'll go back. It looks like we lost connection to our, let me sort this by stress level again. I apologize. It looks like someone's working on the demo right now. As I said, it's unfortunate. So let's drill down, let's go back in. Let's get back to the virtual machine that we're looking at. So I happen to know the name of the virtual machine. All right, so there it is. All right, so now we're back at the virtual machine. So let's go back, and now we'll go find that one metric. So we'll start off here. It was a disk metric. So we'll invoke the virtual expert again. It's saying we'll go down to the sessions view. So now we're going to see, here's the VM at the top. Here's all the sessions running on this VM. This happens to be an RDS 2012 VM. It's hosting IT tools. So here's all the sessions. And one thing I want to point out, and this was true at the VM level as well, there was only one VM that was in the red on IO. And again, it's sorted by the metric most exceeding threshold. In this case, it's IO read operations. There's only one here as well. So I know the problem's isolated to this one session. So next we're going to invoke the virtual expert again and go down to the processes view. Now, before I click this, I want to highlight that I could have gone to processes on the first screen. So I could have got to this screen in one click, but it is helpful to kind of step through to see what it does. So now the session's at the top. Here's all the processes, again, sorted by the metric that's most exceeding threshold. In this case, it's IO read operations. It's over 20,000. And dynamo.exe is the process that's causing me the issues here. So with most monitoring tools, if you could see down to the process level, at this point, you'd be done. There's not much else that you could do. But with ControlUp, there are additional things that you can do. So the first thing I'm going to do to kind of put this problem in context and understand what my next step should be is right-click on the session, and I could start a chat with the user. So I can ask the user if they have some issues. Are they currently, what they're doing right now is impacting other users? Is what they're doing something they have to do right now? Is this a business process? And get a little background on what's going on. And I could also invoke remote assistance right from the console. If their session were disconnected, I could actually RDP to the machine. And if I knew it was locked down by group policy, I could actually kill the group policy first, then RDP in, and then when I'm done, reapply group policy. I also could go and get a session screenshot. In this case, we have three options. We can do it without notifying the user. We can do it with notifying the user or with the user approval. These are configurable by security policy, whether or not they're available and who they're available to. So we're going to go ahead and get a session screenshot. So there it is, and I'm going to enable auto refresh and have it refresh every 1 second. So you can see here now what's going on in this user session. So you can see we're running IO meter in this session. Of course, this is a demo. We need something that's applying a load. So now we've been able to drill down, and with the features of ControlUp, the additional actions that are available, we'll be able to gather more information so we can make a decision on what we should do next. All right, so say I've decided I'm going to allow this user to run this. This is something they need to do right now, but I want to minimize the impact on other users in the environment. All right, so what I could do is right-click on the process level, go down to processes, and I could throttle the process. All right, so if I glance over here, you can see over here, right now it's using 18% CPU. So if I go and throttle this and say that it's only allowed to use 5% CPU, that should actually reduce the IO consumption because it has less access to the CPU. So it can, it's going to have a lot of wait time involved. So you can see there an example of how I started with an issue at the host level, drilled down to the VM, then to the session, and then down to the actual process that's causing a problem. I took several actions to help me understand what I should do about it, and then I was able to actually throttle that. So I'm not going to throttle it for the purposes of this. We do have other people doing demos. So just wanted to show you that example of root cause analysis. So before we go on to the next demo, Brian, are any questions come in while I was going through that?
No, Barry, you're doing great. We're all good right now. Thank you.
All right, good. Thank you. All right. So next, what we're going to do is go to look at some common problems that customers find when they have an end-user computing solution like Citrix or VMware Horizon, and that's troubleshooting user experience. So I talked about this in my opening. So the first thing I did is I clicked on the sessions view. So right now, what I'm looking at, all the current sessions that are happening in our demo environment. All right, so you see there are a lot here, and right here, I actually see how many there are. So there are a number of ways I can kind of slice and dice this. I mentioned that before. So say I only wanted to look at sessions by their state. So one of the great features of ControlUp is that you can group. So I can take this metric right here, state, and drag it up here. And now I'm going to group by, I can see 26 of my sessions are active, and I can only focus on the active sessions, and I can see 16 are disconnected. I can only focus on those if I choose. And you can do that with just about any of these metrics, especially the static metrics. So for instance, if I wanted to do it by branch, I could click and drag branch here and see the sessions by branch. So I have a number of options there. So before I drill down, I wanted to show you that capability. That's a really powerful capability. So since I said we're going to focus on user experience, I'm going to go and choose a user experience focused dashboard. All right, and that one is called UX score. So all the metrics on this dashboard, and this is a built-in one that I've customized a bit for me and my demo style, are focused on user experience. And it has another aggregated metric next to stress level called UX score. UX score, as I said, is an aggregated metric that'll look at these other sets of metrics with a predefined threshold. And again, the idea is help me understand where I should focus my attention. So you can see as I scroll through this, it's sorted right now by user UX score. And I've got a lot of users right now with a bad user experience. So I need to focus. So before I drill down into some specific scenarios, I want to talk about two metrics that we offer at ControlUp that are unique to ControlUp. I don't believe any of the other EUC vendors I've run across have these two metrics. And these two metrics are average app load timer and user input delay. So let me explain what each one of these metrics are and how you can use them in your environment. So the first metric, average app load timer, what it does is track how long it takes an app to load from the time the user double clicks to the time it's fully in memory. All right, so that's an important metric. It's not turned on by default for every executable, but it is an important metric, especially for your mission critical apps, those most important line of business apps in your environment. There's usually 2 or 3 that really in many ways drive your Citrix deployment. So that's an important metric. The next one is user input delay. So this is similar to app load timer, where you would enable this for your most important apps, but this works on an ongoing basis to track how long it takes the system to respond to a user input. So Microsoft enabled this metric on Windows 10 and the latest version of the Windows Server, so we brought it into our console. So now on an ongoing basis, you can track system response. So the important thing here is, if you've been in the Citrix world for a while, you know one of the most common help desk calls is Citrix is slow. With this metric, you can put a number on what slow means in milliseconds. So I think that's incredibly important. So app load timer helps you as the app starts, and user input delay helps you baseline an app's performance as it's continually running. So the way I would use these 2 metrics, first thing that I would do is I would enable them for my most important 2 or 3 apps, and then I would establish a baseline. So let's use some examples. So say your most important app, let's just pick one app. Your average app load time, let's use round numbers here, is 30 seconds. All right, so you have a baseline. When it's running well, it's 30 seconds. And let's say your average user input delay is 50 milliseconds. So users aren't complaining when you have an app load timer of 30 seconds and your user input delay is 50 milliseconds. Then I would set an alert to notify me when either one of those is 50% higher. So I'd set an alert for app load timer that says if the app load time for my most important app is 45 seconds, 50% higher than the baseline, I want to get alerted on that. And if my user input delay is, say, 75 milliseconds, I want to get alerted on that. And the goal there is to understand what the most common bottleneck is. Why are those apps getting bottlenecked? What's the problem? So let's kind of work through the example here. So one of the most common bottlenecks we hear about is CPU, because the user has the browser open and they just have way too many tabs. I constantly hear about people with 30, 40, sometimes 50 tabs open on their browser, and it's just hogging CPU. So now that I understand what the most common bottleneck is for these examples is CPU, I could build an automated action and ControlUp by leveraging our script action capability and our triggering capability to that says, if my most important app has an app load time of 45 milliseconds, there are a couple things I could do. One thing I could do is I could take that process priority and I could tell it to raise it from normal to above normal. So have it do that automatically. Or I could try to deal with the bottleneck. I could tell it to throttle the browser. So if I find the browser is typically using 70% CPU, I could throttle it, say 35%. Or I could do both, or I could lower the priority of the browser. The idea here is that now with ControlUp, I can not only identify measure what slow means and put that in numbers, both for app load time and for user input, but I can measure that, identify the most common bottlenecks, and then leveraging ControlUp automation, deal with those automatically. And we'll show you a few examples of that as we go through. So before we do that, I want to show you some specific user input issues that we can troubleshoot beyond what I just talked about. So as I said, we got a lot of users here with a red user user experience score. And as I scroll across, I see a lot of them are related to login duration. We do break login duration down into 4 components at a metric level. I see I got quite a few users with a high group policy load time and a high desktop load time. So what I'm going to do here now is go to another dashboard that only focuses on login duration. And again, this is one of the most common problems that we hear about from customers is high login duration. So I'm going to sort by login duration. And you can see I've got a user with a 100-second login duration, a 59 seconds. So there are quite a few users with a high login duration. And if I look across at where we have it broken down into 4 metrics, profile load time, group policy load time, desktop load time, and other, I can see right away the user's having the worst problem. I have a high group policy load time. So that's very useful to know. But if my environment is like most environments. I could still have a lot of work to do. We typically hear customers saying they have 20 or 30 group policies. When I was at Microsoft Ignite last week, a customer actually told me that they have 250 group policies. I know it's a crazy high number, but you can imagine if you have 30, 40 or more group policies, knowing that the overall load time is high is a problem, but I really have a lot more work to do to figure out which group policy is a problem. So with ControlUp and script actions, you could do that. So what I'm going to do is select these two sessions that have a high group policy extension load time, and I'm going to right click on them, and then I'm going to go down to our script actions, and I'm going to invoke a script action, which is a PowerShell script that we've loaded into ControlUp that analyzes the GPO extension load time. So this is going to look in the event log for these two sessions, identify every GPO that each one of these sessions loaded and how long each one took. So let's run that. So on the first session, you can see it was 94 seconds for all of the group policies to load. And I scroll to the top. It took almost 92 seconds for the drive mapping GPO to load. So now I know, all right, drive mapping GPO is one of my problems. Let's go to the second one. It took 50 seconds total. Let's scroll up to the top, and 48 seconds again for the drive mapping GPO. So now instead of having to troubleshoot all the GPOs, I know exactly which one I need to focus on, the drive map GPO. So that really gives you an idea of the power of leveraging script actions in ControlUp. I want to talk briefly about a couple other script actions that we have related to login duration. In the interest of time, I don't have time to show all of them. But one is called Analyze Login Duration, and it breaks down login duration in much deeper than we do even in the console. So two places that it looks that can hide problems that you may not be looking for are in the run key in the registry. When you put something in the Windows startup, that's where it gets loaded in the run key in the Windows registry. And it looks at printer mapping. So it drills down to each of those and tells you how long each process in there or each print mapper mapping takes. So I can give you two real world examples where this has helped customers. So we had one long-time ControlUp customer. They had been a customer so long, they were a customer before we even offered script action, so they had not ever downloaded the Analyze Login Duration script. So they had one user with 130-second login duration, and they were really having trouble figuring out what it was. So we got them to download the Analyze Login Duration script, the latest version. They ran it, and it turned out the problem was Office 365. And we looked at multiple other users, and we found only one user had this Office 365 problem. So we had them delete the Office 365 account because we knew it's typical the first time you create Office 365, the login duration can be high because it makes so many changes to the registry and the profile. But generally that goes away on the second time. So we had them delete it, recreate the user account for Office 365. And the first time they had a high login duration, we had them log out, log back in. The second time they were fine. So we had them do this experiment several times to make sure that was a problem. And it turned out it was. This user was stuck in a loop. Every single time they logged in, the system thought they were creating an Office 365 account for the first time. So it was making those changes every single time. So that's one example. Another example, we had another ControlUp customer. They did have script actions, and they did have the Analyze Login Duration script, but they had a very old version of it that did not have some of the new capabilities. So we were talking through with them about some of the new capabilities, and they said, well, it can't be the printer mapping. And we said, well, why not? And they said, because we printed from every printer in this user session, it works fine. So we said, well, let's try it anyway. And we did, and we found that they had one brother print driver that would map every single time, but it took an average of 65 seconds. And it turned out they had a very old driver. It did work, but it took a long time to map. So we had them update that driver, and the problem went away. Their overall login duration went from about 90 seconds to about 35 seconds. So that's a couple of examples of how script actions can help you troubleshoot user experience. One more thing I did want to mention, with ControlUp automation, I could actually set it up so that I troubleshoot a high login duration every single time and have that sent to a help desk ticket. So you could actually create, you can see here in our triggering system where we alert you when there's problem. One of the options now is automated actions. So what this allows you to do is you could actually create, let me go sort by this, and I think we have one already, is you could create a automated action that basically troubleshoots your login duration automatically and sends the output to a help desk ticket. So I think this is the one. So you can see this looks at the session view, and it says if login duration is greater than or equal to 25, we have it set to a low level for the demo. It looks at the entire farm and does it every single day. It's going to run an action. In this case, the action is, it does the analyze login duration script, and then it connects to ServiceNow and opens a ticket. So it actually could output the analyze login duration script straight to a help desk ticket. So one of the things I would do is I would take all of our scripts that are related to login duration, say group policy extension load time, the analyze login duration, calculate user profile size, and there are several others, and have a trigger that says if login duration is higher than, say, 35 or 40 seconds, every time run all these scripts and either email them to me directly or output them to a help desk ticket. So when you open that help desk ticket or that email, the troubleshooting is done. So I've showed you a little bit about user experience, and we've got a few minutes left. I want to show you some automated actions. Before we do that, let's see if we have any questions, Brian.
Looks like we do have one. Does ControlUp support historical reporting?
Yes, we do have, and I wanted to spend most of my time on the real-time console. So we do have historical reporting. We call it Insights. It gives you up to a year of historical reporting with 5-minute data granularity throughout that entire year. We have a number of those reports built in, and I'm going to show you a couple of automated actions. And if I have time after that, before we jump into questions, I'll show you ControlUp Insights. So let me jump in. As I said, this is brand new beta code. We've had a little issue with stability. So let me double check to make sure our monitor is not having a problem. And it looks like everything is good. So we'll show you some automated actions. So one automated action that I want to show you is the deal with a common problem we hear from customers all the time is, I have an app that is just a bad app. We have to run it. It intermittently locks up and pegs the CPU at 100% for 30 to 60 seconds. And this is a common scenario we hear from both, Citrix and Horizon customers. We even hear this from guys that are supporting just server VMs. Just a bad app. They have to use it. The business says this is the only one we can use. It hogs the CPU. It's intermittent. So if you have a solution that collects data every 5 minutes, this kind of problem is actually difficult to troubleshoot, because when it locks, it has to lock up during that 5 minutes or you're going to miss it. But this is a common problem that we run into. And of course, typically what happens is when the app locks up, the user calls the help desk, they get level 1, level 1 passes it to level 2. Level 2, might get to it in an hour or two, depending on how busy they are. Then they go in, they find out it's a pegged up process. They kill the process and restart it for the user. All right. So, and so you end up with an hour or two of an outage and a help desk incident, which on average costs $74. So what we have here is an app that all it's going to do is hog the processor, and we have an automated action that's built that says, and I'll show you the automated action. Go in here to our triggers, and all it says is for this app, if it hogs the processor for a short period of time, because this is a demo, it's going to bring a custom message to the screen, and then it's going to kill the process. So I'll show it to you. Here's the process. So it says, it specifies the app executable, so it only does it for this app, and the CPU is greater or equal to 15. Of course, we set this low because it's the demo, and it's going to run all the time. It's going to run on our Citrix folders, and then you'll see the action. First, it's going to do a Windows pop-up message, and then it's going to kill the process. Then it's going to send an email alert to the SE that set it up. Then it's going to run an event to the event log. So if I go back to our screen here, I can see it's already brought the custom message. So the custom message is right there in the back. If I move this over, you can see it. There's the custom message. One of our SEs, Roger, wrote this. He's a Seinfeld fan. You might recognize the No Soup for You. So we click OK on that. And now here, it'll automatically kill this process. So that's an example of where you can leverage ControlUp to take a common recurring issue in your environment. Once you identify that issue, build an automated action that not only essentially eliminates the outage time associated with that incident, but eliminates a help desk incident ticket, which, as I said, on average costs $74. We find from our customers a 20, 30% or more reduction a month in monthly help desk tickets. So that can be a very substantial savings. All right, so I want to show you one more automated action. That's it's a simple one, but it's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do here is go down to the session view, and I actually have a session open right now on Windows 10. So let's go into the session view and let's find my session. All right, so there's my session, and I want the Windows 10 session, so here's the Windows 10 session. All right, so let's go and look. You see all the processes running in my Windows 10 session. So let's sort by name here. So in preparation for the demo, I'm actually going to change a couple things here. Just in preparation for the demo, I'm going to change this process priority back to normal. And I'm going to change this one to normal as well. And this is just a result of someone else running this demo. All right, so I'm running Acrobat right now in this session. So I want to show you an example of using user input delay to tune an app. So right now we have this set to running at normal process priority. You can tell there's no user input delay. So we have an automated action that's built for this particular process, this app, that says if user input delay hits a threshold, because this is commonly CPU bottleneck, what it's going to do is take this process priority and raise it automatically to normal, and you see an improvement in performance. So let's go run it. So I'm going to try to move this 3D drawing. So there's a bit of a delay for it when I click and drag it. It's a little bit of a delay. So let's go back. You see user input delay has already hit 328 milliseconds. So that's useful to see that that's happened. Let's go move it a few more times so we can ensure that the action gets triggered. There is a little bit of delay because of how it collects. And what it's going to do after it gets the user input delay is high, it's going to take this process priority and raise it from normal to above normal. And while I'm waiting for that, I am going to check one more thing that we've been having trouble with the demo. It looks like we're still good here. So you'll see here in a few seconds, it's going to take this process and raise it to normal. It probably has already happened in the background. It just hasn't updated the console yet. So I'm going to start trying to move this, and I'm really going to push it. And you see it's actually much more responsive now. I'm not really having any trouble at all with the response at all. So even if it's not showing yet on the console, it's already taken the process priority and raised it from normal to above normal. You can see my user input delay was just 78 milliseconds as opposed to 328 milliseconds that it was earlier. So it really helps you improve the performance. That's an example of customizing user input based on a metric and dealing with that automatically. So it'll take another few seconds here and you'll see that it jumps up from normal to above normal. So there is one more thing I want to show, and then I'll show you a little bit in Insights. So what I'm going to do is we have another, let's go back to sessions here. We have another metric called, or another automated action. It's just a simple one. What it does is it looks at session state. So, you know, we have anonymous aggregated access to our cloud data. And one of the things that we see as we look at the cloud data is that the typical Citrix customer has 30% of their sessions either idle or disconnected. Of course, generally those users are not closing any apps, so those apps are still using CPU and memory and I/O. So those end up, in most cases, being wasted resources. So we have a few triggers that we deliver with a product that say, if a session goes from idle or disconnected, is an idle or disconnected state for a period of time, to lower the process priority and trim the working set memory. So I'm going to show you these automated actions. Scroll down here. So here's one, the disconnected one. So you can see when a session state goes from active to disconnected for 3 seconds, and there's no filter criteria. It's going to capture all of them. It's going to run on all the farm across every day. It's going to first adjust the process priority based on the session state. That's the name of the automated action. And this is going to trim the working set memory. So let's go and invoke this. All right, so I'm going to take this session right here. We'll drill down. You'll see the process priority of all the actions. Most of them are right now at normal. All right, and what we're going to do is right click on the session and force it to go to a disconnected state. All right, so as this session goes to a disconnected state, you'll see here in about 10 or 15 seconds, you'll start seeing these processes drop from normal to below normal. All right, so what this is doing is automatically doing that, and it's going to start lowering the working set memory for each one of these apps. And you'll see it start to get lower and lower. So you can see it's already happening. All these processes now were normal. They're now below normal. So you start scrolling down, you can see almost all the processes now are at below normal. And this now, as it finishes that, then it's going to start trimming the working set memory. So this happens automatically. So we had one customer implemented this. They were doing a pilot, a proof of concept rather, for I think 500 Citrix users. And after running it for 2 weeks, we went and looked with them to see how many times it run. It had run over 120,000 times because they had so many people going idle and disconnected, and they were wasting so many resources. So the next thing I'm going to do, because we have another session that will automatically change it back. So when I take that, when I log back in here to our storefront and I go connect again to that same Windows 10 desktop, you'll see it'll start coming up. It's going to pop back up, and it's going to be the same desktop I had before, because that's how Citrix works. It'll go start taking all my process priority, and so you see back, here's the same session I was in. It's going to start raising the process priority. In a few seconds, you'll see it start changing and start raising everything back to normal. And you can see it's already started happening. So if I sort by priority, there's still a lot at below normal, but if I scroll down, you'll see a lot have already started to move to normal, and that will continue to happen as it goes through. So more and more, you see they're all just about back at normal now. So now we've taken an idle or disconnected session. In this case, it was disconnected. We'd already lowered the process priority for every single process. We lowered it one step. So if it was normal, it went to below normal. If it was high, for instance, it went to above normal went to normal. And then we trimmed the working set memory. And then we set it back when the user went active again. So that's just some examples of ControlUp automation. So I will quickly jump into ControlUp Insights, our historical data reporting, to show you a little bit of that before we jump in and start taking questions. So while I start this up, Brian, are there any questions that I can cover while I log into Insights here?
Yes, Barry. How is ControlUp licensed?
So for EUC customers, we license by concurrent user session. And when you're in ControlUp, it's really easy to check that. You can just go, if you download our free trial, there's a free 21-day trial at ControlUp.com. When you run that, you can go in and click Help About and click Licensing, and it'll show you all the concurrent sessions you have. So right now we're at a peak. We're currently at 28. Our peak is 54 in our demo environment. So that's how many licenses that we would need for this environment.
Great. Another one that kind of might fall into what you're going to show is, can historical reporting be used for license consumption?
For Citrix license consumption, yes, it actually can. We do have a Citrix license usage dashboard. I'm often surprised by how much people love this. It seems like such a simple thing, but it's actually been a very popular feature from our customers. So assuming you're talking about Citrix licenses, yes. We don't have it for other app licensing. Of course, other apps have a wide variety of license enforcement, but we do have it for Citrix specifically.
Okay, great. Thank you, Barry.
And you can see, you can pick by default, you have 4-hour time, a 24-hour time, a 1 week, a 1 month, or a 1 year. So there are a lot of reports here that are Citrix specific. We have Netscaler reporting now. We have both Netscaler and I didn't show that in the demo, but we have that both in the real-time console and we have it in historical reporting. We also have a lot of app-specific ones, so you can drill down into specific apps. We have session reporting protocol. There's a login duration report as well. And one thing I like about this login duration report, you can not only see it broken down by the 4 or 5 levels we have in the console, but you can see a benchmark against all ControlUp customers. So you can see our average login duration is 20 seconds, but the average across all ControlUp customers is 27 seconds. And it breaks down the others. So let's go to group policy load time. So you can see that our average is 1 second, but the community average is 7 seconds. So you can see that. So we'll show you 3 top level reports and then we'll go to the full Q&A. So 3 reports I always like to show. First one is Top Insights. So what Top Insights does is, the first goal is to help you understand what's changing. So what this is doing is looking at yesterday's data. So today is Wednesday. This is looking at Tuesday's data, but it's not comparing Tuesday to Monday. it's comparing Tuesday to the previous 7 Tuesdays, so you can understand what's changed. And we look at it on a user, computer or VM, host, and application level. So you can see yesterday we had 5 new client devices that had never logged in before. We got a new user that logged in that just started this week. We had 54% user sessions than we did the previous Tuesday. The previous Tuesday we were at Ignite, so there were a lot of demos last week, and our login duration this week is slower for some reason, and we can drill down on that. You can see there are a number of things related to users and computers and host. Another thing I'd like to highlight here is the benchmarks that we have available here. So see, yesterday our host disk IO was 1,929 IOPS. That's 30% lower than we average on Tuesday, but 241% higher than the global average across all ControlUp customers. So we give you the ability not only to benchmark against yourself and the history of your environment, but also all the other 1,500 ControlUp customers. So that's a really powerful feature. The dev team is working on building additional benchmark dashboard that you'll be able to filter. And the goal is to have it filtered by, excuse me, first by geo, then by industry like healthcare, financial services, insurance, that kind of thing. And then by company size, in terms of employees. So we should have that coming soon. So that's top insights. Next is environment assessment. This is a really powerful report that by default looks at 30 days, and it goes and looks at all the metrics you have in your environment. It gives you 40 data widgets that you can drill down into. So if you want to see what your average CPU and consumption is across host, you can see that over the last 30 days and drill down. Same for RAM, same for disk IO, same for network. Same thing for the computers and VMs across your environment. For sessions, how many sessions are, how many are active? What's your login duration over that time? How's it change? You can drill down bandwidth, latency. What's your most popular apps by usage? And my favorite part of this dashboard is down at the bottom, the top consumers. So if I am, really want to drill down to how we're using IO, I can start off host by IO. It's this host, I can drill down. Computers and VMs by IO. Click IO, it's this VM, and I can drill down. I want to see which user is using the most IO. It's this user, I can click there and drill down, and same thing for apps. It's this app, and I can drill down. So that's a really powerful report. And then the last one I'll highlight, and then we'll go to the full Q&A, is our sizing recommendations. So this is a really powerful report, and what it does is look at every VM in your environment over the last 30 days. It needs at least 2 weeks of data, but preferably 30 days. And what it does is look at the average and peak CPU and memory and tell you what percentage of your VMs are over provisioned, what percentage are right size, and what percentage are under provisioned. And the idea here came from, as I said earlier, we have anonymous aggregated access to the data. We did a study of 148,000 VMs, and of the 71,000 server VMs we looked at, for instance, 77% were over provisioned on memory, an average of 11 gigabytes. So we did the math. Those 948 companies that we looked at were wasting $33,000 on server VM memory that they never used. And we find that happens in almost every single customer environment, over provisioning of VMs. And you can scroll down here at the bottom to get the details. So I can sort by RAM recommendation. It's telling me this VM has 14 gig of memory. It's recommending no more than 5. And if I click here, I can drill down and find out why. And the reason why we're recommending such a huge reduction in memory is over the last month, we never used more than 2 gigabytes of RAM in this VM. And we're also recommending, if you look here, it's got 4 virtual CPUs. We're recommending 1. And the reason for that is we never use more than 3%. So it's really powerful. I will stress, you do want to capture the peaks in your environment when you use this report. So if the peak is the end of the quarter, end of the year, you want to make sure you capture that so that you don't make a change when you don't hit a peak. And then when that peak comes, you're under provisioned. Right, so with that, that's the highlights. I will say, as I said earlier, you can go to ControlUp.com and download a free 21-day trial. It's available now. It's fully functional. There's no limits on it for 21 days. And you can find out the power of ControlUp. So with that, Brian, we'll take some more questions.
Great, thank you, Barry. First question is, how does ControlUp calculate stress level?
So it's different for every object. But if I click here on an object and I click right here, it'll actually tell you exactly how. So in this case, it's stress for for hosts, it's looking at consume memory, and there's a load, and you can see the settings there. You can see it specifically, and then it has another one. So, and here's where you can actually go and configure it. But if I go and look at stress for a virtual machine, we'll click on this one that's filtered right now. You can see what we look at for virtual machines. Each one of them has a different load and a different threshold, but all of those are configurable. So if you don't like the defaults, and we base the defaults based on what we learned from the real world environments, so they work pretty well, but you can change those.
Okay, great. With the historical permissions question, Barry, you actually answered a number of the questions that came through. So we really have two more here. One is, can I remove or install software through ControlUp?
Inside of VM, I would say that's not something that's built in. Of course, with a script action, if you have a script action where, say, you wanted to install an agent, you could do that. I would say ControlUp is not an electronic software distribution tool. We're focused on what you need to do to troubleshoot and fix, and leveraging monitoring to do that. But there are some scenarios where you want to install something. One of our script actions, for example, if you're familiar with a sysinternals tool that Microsoft offers, Mark Rasinovich came out with them a long time ago, and Microsoft has continued to update those. We do have a script action that will actually run one of those tools. They have procmon, for example, and one of the script actions will go and track disk usage by process and network usage by process. So it leverages procmon to get an even deeper dive on that. And one of the options of that script action is to install procmon first. So technically it's possible. I would caution you though, this is not designed to be an electronic software distribution tool. It's designed for a troubleshooting tool. So with that caveat, it is possible with script actions.
Okay, great. So two more here. Does ControlUp support user permissions?
I'm going to assume they're talking about users of ControlUp, and yes, you can give different users different capabilities. We have a complete security policy. So a common thing is I want to give my level 1 help desk team access to ControlUp, but I don't want them to be able to do everything. So you can limit what they can have access to. So you may not allow them to run any actions, but allow them to see metrics and see data. So pretty much everything in the screen, you can control what they have access to. So there is a very sophisticated policy that's available to control what level, what people have access to, and even give them different levels of access to different folders within the tree.
Okay, great. And kind of a unique question here. I had this for myself. So ControlUp is very visual. Are you able to adjust the row and the height, like the width and the height of the different graphics in the rows in there? If you're using maybe a laptop or a secondary screen?
Yes. So you can see it right here.
Very cool.
You can do that, and I think you can do it for here as well. Maybe not here, but you can definitely do it with the metrics. So, if there's one you want to stretch it out a little, and as I said, you can really customize the presets. So you could build really ones that have a lot less. So here's one that one of our SEs built for a customer for a help desk view. So it may, well, that one's got more metrics than I thought. So let's find a really simple one that doesn't have a lot of metrics. I think this one might, yeah. So this one has a few dynamic metrics and a lot of static metrics. So it's really easy. You go into manage columns, and you can go and control what metrics are available, what order they're available, even the default width of the metrics. And you can then save those and make those available. So the grid view is very powerful. As I said, the idea that you can sort by any metric and move the metrics around. If I want this one right here, I can easily do that and save that. So the grid view is very powerful. And surprisingly, most EUC-focused monitoring tools don't give you this kind of grid view. And I think it's very powerful because a common scenario is someone calls in for a help desk ticket. You go and isolate the problem, find out what it is, and turns out it's affecting 20 other users, so they just haven't called the help desk yet. So I can be proactive and start fixing that problem for those other users before I even get a help desk ticket.
Well, Barry, great. Thank you very much. That answers all our questions. I just want to thank everybody once again for attending. Um, Barry, I'm sure you're available if anybody would want to reach out to you directly. I am as well. Any final thoughts or comments before we close down the webinar?
Yeah, just as I said earlier, go to controlup.com. You can download a free 21-day trial. Critical Design Associates has experts on ControlUp that can help you with that. It's very easy to set up, but as you can see, there's some really powerful capabilities, especially with the automated actions. And if you're not familiar with ControlUp or with a PowerShell, some of those can be intimidating, but CDA has some experts on that can really help you. And I encourage you to leverage that expertise so you can get the most out of the platform.
Great, Barry. Well, thank you once again for being available today. And thank you everybody for attending, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, Brian, looks like everyone's gone now.